My name is Haley Langevin, and I cannot get my application I downloaded that records my screen to work for my final project. So this is how I'm recording my video presentation. Here is my ID just to verify that it is me giving this presentation. Okay. So with that being said, okay. My name is Haley Langevin, and this is my final project for my Fall 2022 Introduction into Psychology class for Professor Scott. My presentation is over the portrayals of mental health issues in social media. Because this topic covers issues involving social media, it combines elements of sociology and psychology. So this presentation is aimed at an audience who utilizes social media in their day-to-day lives. This includes both those who suffer from mental health issues and those who do not. Learning about the portrayals of mental health in social media can help individuals who struggle with mental health issues recognize misinformation regarding their mental illnesses and avoid mental and emotional detriment that may be a result of that misinformation. A study reported on by the American Psychological Association in 2022 found a link between the use of social media and an increase in stress, depression, loneliness, and body image issues. Learning about the misrepresentations of mental health issues on social media can aid those who already struggle with their mental health in combating those effects that the misrepresentation may have. This topic can also help the individuals recognize positive aspects in the portrayal of mental health issues on social media, something that I will elaborate on further in this presentation. This topic is also helpful for individuals who don't struggle with mental health issues who use social media frequently, as it informs the variances of misrepresentation regarding mental health on social media. It helps deter viewers from participating in the spread of misinformation and helps viewers avoid succumbing to the bystander effect by outlining the harms that misinformation can inflict. According to the Oxford International Baccalaureate 2nd edition psychology textbook, bystanderism can be defined as inaction in the face of emergency, the recognition that others may be harmed and doing nothing to combat the issue. The textbook goes on to note that the bystander effect is due to two key factors: diffusion of responsibility and the fear of having misread a situation. This presentation is beneficial to those who utilize social media who do not struggle with mental health issues, as learning about the topic helps diffuse both driving factors of bystanderism in regards to the portrayal of mental health on social media. This presentation is also beneficial to this group as it may aid in the relief of learned stigmas against individuals with mental health issues, something that I will also elaborate on further in this presentation. So this demographic is significant. Pew Research Center conducted a study in 2021 analyzing social media usage by age and found that in the United States, 84% of adults aged 18 to 29 use at least one form of social media. According to the National Census Bureau, the age group of 18 to 29 in the United States makes up 15% of the entire U.S. population, rendering it significant. So just before I really get into the meat of this presentation, I wanted to give a preface and a side note to how this presentation is set up. So the way I set this presentation up is by first stating and defining the ways in which mental health issues are portrayed on social media, which are the 5 main points of this presentation. I then give an example of a specific mental illness that's affected by the portrayal, and then I detail the effects of the portrayal. This setup is not meant to imply that these 5 main concepts don't overlap in content, as sometimes they do, or that these portrayals are only applicable to the mental illness I give as examples, as they each can apply to a wide variety of mental illnesses. With that being said, the first type of portrayal of mental health issues I'm going to talk about is that of false portrayal, which can be thought of as a bit of an umbrella term, but I thought was still important to elaborate upon. Power Thesaurus defines false as not in accordance with facts or actual reality, and portrayal as a word picture of a person's appearance or character. In this context, a false portrayal could be an inaccurate idea or set of ideas surrounding a mental health issue that is published and sometimes popularized via social media. So, what is borderline personality disorder? Psychologist Dr. Jennifer Saris defines the condition as a serious mental disorder involving a pervasive dysfunction of the emotion regulation system. The hallmark features of this disorder include impulsive, self-destructive behavior, including self-mutilation, suicide attempts, and threats, as well as chaotic and stormy interpersonal relationships. It's estimated that 1.4% of the United States population has borderline personality disorder. Some other defining characteristics of this disorder include chronic feelings of emptiness, frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment, paranoia, and identity disturbance. Because BPD is a personality disorder, it affects an individual's entire set of cognitive processes and proves a major hindrance on their everyday lives. Borderline personality disorder is portrayed falsely on social media. Therapeutic resource emotionsmatter.org says, quote, borderline personality disorder is often portrayed by stigmatized stereotypes and general misinformation across multiple medias, end quote. This does not exclude social media. An article published in 2022 by Psychology Today titled The Alarming Trend of Teens Self-Diagnosing Borderline Personality Disorder on TikTok describes how teenagers on a popular social media forum are describing extreme emotions and attributing them to borderline personality disorder without a proper diagnosis. The article states, quote, millions of teens are seeing them. As a result, we're hearing reports that a lot of kids are diagnosing themselves with borderline personality disorder, even though emotional volatility is a typical characteristic of adolescence, end quote. Self-diagnosis plays a huge part in stigmatization, which I will talk more about shortly, and can be attributed in today's age in part due to a false portrayal of a mental health issue, especially on social media. The image of borderline personality disorder on social media is one that can be perceived as desirable to an impressionable mind. Alice King of Medium.com writes about BPD stereotypes in media. She says, quote, through this lens, we see people who intensely feel their emotions, are erratic in their decisions and actions, and are yet found to be exciting and free-spirited. People with BPD are portrayed as one-dimensional characters, end quote. A quick Pinterest search proves this point. Every picture on this slide was found under the search keywords borderline personality disorder aesthetic. Individuals, especially women with borderline personality disorder, have been effectively aestheticized and are portrayed on social media as model-esque women, typically with dyed hair and unique senses of fashion. This false portrayal of the debilitating personality disorder that 1.4% of the U.S. population is inflicted with has extremely negative implications on those who consume it. An article published by the National Association for Mental Health summarizes this perfectly. The article states, quote, the problem with many of the BPD depictions we see is that they failed to consider the totality of the character's lived experience. Instead, they offer an incomplete view of the person, end quote. So the effects of false portrayal. Regarding self-diagnosis, Angela Ryan of the University of Birmingham conducted a study on self-diagnosis. In the background information of said study, she details, quote, the growth of the internet has enabled the public to more readily access information about health and disease. This influx of information can urge a person to self-diagnose with a condition. End quote. When the popularized information surrounding a mental health issue is false or incomplete, an individual has a propensity to incorrectly self-diagnose said mental health issue. This incorrect self-diagnosis plays a dire role in the stigmatization of said mental illness. Dr. Muhammad Ar-Saeed Sabu of the International Journal of Mental Health Systems recognizes 4 types of stigmas against individuals with mental health issues. He recognizes self-stigma, public stigma, professional stigma, and institutional stigma. In general, false portrayal can have a negative effect on self-stigma, as a person can view false or partial information about their own mental health issue on social media and then project that image onto themselves, and on public stigma, as a public without a mental health issue could view false and partial information about said mental health issue and project that stigma upon individuals with that mental health issue. So the Britannica Dictionary defines stigma as a set of negative and incorrect and often unfair stereotypes that a society or group of people have about something. The Oxford International Baccalaureate 2nd edition textbook details accepted hypotheses regarding how stereotypes occur. The textbook describes a construct of illusory correlations. Illusory correlations are a set of functions our brain utilizes in order to attempt to understand how the world around us works. An illusory correlation occurs when a person subconsciously sees 2 variables that correlate, even if they do not. The textbook uses a specific example, quote, a woman believes all pit bulls are dangerous because she read one article on an aggressive pit bull, end quote. When the public sees false portrayals of a specific mental health issue on social media, they draw conclusions about all individuals with that mental health issue. These illusory correlations form stereotypes, which contribute heavily to stigmas. Oliver Bonington of Science Direct has this to say on stigmas about mental health. Quote, stigmatization leads to numerous negative consequences for people with mental illnesses, including reduced self-esteem, hurt and anger, social withdrawal, rejection, avoidance, delayed healthcare seeking, unemployment, reduced income, poorer quality of life, and less support. Three more effects are romanticization, demonization, and weaponization, which each fall under the umbrella of false portrayal. These are 3 of my 5 main points. So my second main point, an effect of my first main point, is focusing on the romanticization of mental health issues on social media. According to the Oxford Dictionary, to romanticize something is to describe it in an idealized or unrealistic fashion, to make something appear better or more desirable than it really is. In this context, romanticization can be extremely harmful, as it can make serious mental health issues appear desirable to those who do not possess them. And just a quick content warning, my next slide for my examples shows romanticized depictions of anorexia. So what is anorexia? Cynthia M. Bulick, a doctor of psychopathology, states individuals with anorexia are unable to maintain a normal, healthy body weight, often dropping well below 85% of their ideal weight. Anorexia is a mental health issue classified by an obsession with weight loss, and individuals who have anorexia are prone to extreme and excessive restricting of food and excessive exercise. This mental health issue is especially dangerous as it is directly linked to its physical health effects. Individuals who suffer from anorexia are susceptible to rotting teeth, loss of bone density, low blood pressure, and sometimes death. It's estimated that 5 to 20% of individuals who have anorexia actually die from the condition. So how is anorexia romanticized on social media? It's common knowledge that the majority of Americans, especially American women, have a desire to be thin. An article published by a website called Beauty Health Pro, titled Top 10 Popular American Beauty Standards for Women, lists their first beauty standard as skinny. Because the side effect of the life-threatening mental and physical health condition anorexia is rapid and extreme weight loss, the illness itself has been romanticized and utilized as a beauty tool on social media under the nickname Anna. Author Caitlin Donnelly writes about this pressing issue in her article, Is Anorexia Being Romanticized? She answers her own question, stating, quote, Anna is short for anorexia. This is the cute nickname that has been given to an eating disorder and mental illness. You can find pro-Anna posts all over social media, Tumblr, Pinterest, and Thinspiration blogs. Anorexia is being portrayed as something desirable, beautiful, alluring, and even covetable. End quote. A quick Twitter search proves her right. Every image on screen was found using the keywords pro-Anna. Entire threads of content containing thinspo, or pictures of extremely thin women, bonespo, or pictures of collar and hip bones, and tips on how to starve are found in mass amounts on Twitter due to the romanticization of anorexia. So the effects of romanticization. So one of the first effects I want to talk about is imposter syndrome. The Harvard Business Journal reports that imposter syndrome, quote, can be defined as a collection of feelings of inadequacy that persist despite success, end quote. Marie Drost Counseling states about imposter syndrome, quote, imposter syndrome sufferers suffer from chronic self-doubt and a sense of fraud, end quote, even if they are not frauds. In this instance, individuals who have anorexia could see the romanticization of the illness online and feel as if they are not as thin or sick as the individuals depicted under the keywords thinspo or pro-anorexia, thus delaying their recovery. This could serve as a fuel for the disorder, as the very nature of anorexia lies in a desire to be thinner or to have control over one's weight. This fuel can obviously lead to a number of health risks. A review of anorexia published by the Mayo Health Clinic reveals a number of health risks caused by the mental illness. It lists thinning hair, eroded teeth, loss of bone density, irregular heartbeat, abdominal pain, dehydration, and death as health effects that can occur from anorexia. Romanticization of a mental illness on social media also plays a huge role in public and self-stigmas against those with mental illnesses. In this specific instance, those who consume pro-anorexia through social media who have anorexia could arrive at the conclusion that they aren't thin enough to need help, thus creating a stigma about themselves. The public, those who don't have anorexia, could consume the same media and, because of a thin beauty standard, create an illusory construct and arrive at the conclusion that anorexia is beautiful and not something life-threatening or serious. My third main point in regard to the portrayal of mental health via social media is another effect of my first. It is that of demonization. The Oxford Dictionary defines demonization as a portrayal of something as wicked and threatening. In this context, a demonizing portrayal of a mental illness could result in a person being seen as inherently crazy, dangerous, or evil due to their mental illness alone. So what is schizophrenia? The Mayo Clinic defines schizophrenia as a serious mental disorder in which people interpret reality abnormally. Schizophrenia may result in some combination of hallucinations, delusions, and extremely disordered thinking and behavior that impairs daily functioning and can be disabling, end quote. Nowhere in the diagnostic definition of schizophrenia is the word dangerous ever mentioned. However, this notion is ignored when it comes to the vast majority of the portrayal of schizophrenia on social media. An article published by the Mentally Aware Nigeria Initiative states people living with schizophrenia are portrayed as violent and dangerous across multiple medias. A 2012 study found that over 80% of characters with schizophrenia in films displayed violent behavior and nearly a third engaged in homicidal behavior, end quote. This portrayal in film carries over to a public opinion. In a recent study conducted by the American Association for Public Opinion Research about the public perception of people with schizophrenia, 61% of the public surveyed responded that they feared the disorder a lot. Because social media's very nature is a platform on which to express public opinion, the portrayal of schizophrenia on social media is one that is demonized as well. A Pinterest search using simply the word schizophrenia procured every image on screen. Objectively scary, unsettling, and sometimes violent imagery is the result of searching the mental illness on the social website. To illustrate the harms of this, paraphrasing Twitter user @whatisthis says, #mental illness misconceptions. People with schizophrenia often get asked, do the voices tell you to hurt people? People with schizophrenia are scared and lonely people, not serial killers. The National Library of Medicine, I apologize for that. The National Library of Medicine states the term schizophrenia is often used to denote poor attributes. Consequently, the schizophrenic label itself is associated with negative connotations. These negative connotations are largely due to the demonization of schizophrenia. Okay, so the effects of demonization, So this demonization obviously has detrimental effects. Firstly, it has an effect on the public stigma of the mental health issue being demonized. For example, when an individual who does not have schizophrenia sees stigmatized information via social media of schizophrenia being scary or dangerous, due to an illusory construct, the individual could attribute scary or dangerous to the individuals with schizophrenia, thus furthering the public stigma. This could result in social discrimination against the individuals diagnosed with the mental illness being demonized. When the opinion of a mental illness, in this case schizophrenia, is one that concludes it is dangerous or scary, individuals with that diagnosis may be deprived of social opportunities that someone without the diagnosis has. Oxford's International Baccalaureate Psychology textbook, 2nd edition, defines discrimination as, quote, more than just a stigma against a group of people. It involves action, treating people in an unfair way based on a group membership, end quote. In this instance, the group is the mentally ill. As a result of this discrimination, a negative self-image in those being discriminated against may occur. Better Health stated in an article regarding discrimination of the mentally ill, quote, discrimination can make mental health problems worse and stop a person from getting the help that they need, end quote. This negative self-image can develop into a self-stigma, in which, in this example, an individual with schizophrenia may see the mental illness described as dangerous or scary and attribute those words to themselves, even if it's not true. The Oxford Dictionary defines weaponize as to exploit for the purpose of attacking a person or group, or for spreading discord. The topic of the weaponization of mental health issues on social media is my fourth main point, and is yet another effect of my first main point. In this context, weaponizing a mental illness on social media can be utilized by cyberbullies to attack a group of people with a mental illness. So what is autism? According to the Autism Speaks website, autism refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with social skills, repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. An estimated 2.2% of the entire U.S. population has autism. Autism is weaponized by bullies as an insult. Dr. Connie Anderson writes for the Ian Research Project, quote, "Our findings show that people with autism are bullied at a very high rate and are often intentionally triggered into outbursts. Social media is sadly no exception for the weaponization of autism." Cecilia D'Anastasio writes for Kotaku, a gaming blog, across the internet now, in several gaming circles, gamers who display a level of enthusiasm beyond the norm are referred to as autists. The weaponization of this specific mental health issue is especially harrowing. Valerie Maleka writes for Autism Parenting magazine, "Many people with autism find communicating challenging, which in turn can create a heavy reliance on the digital and online world. However, children with autism are soft spots and easy pickings for cyberbullies," end quote. For the examples of weaponization, I have provided 2 testimonies on screen from individuals posting about their experience with the weaponization of autism. Both individuals expressed hurt, misunderstanding, and a need for a change. This can be best summarized by Reddit user Toasted Peanut Jam, quoted on screen, stating, "Do people even know the kind of hurt that they're causing?" So the effects of weaponization. The weaponization of a mental illness has extreme consequences. According to the National Institute of Stress, stress is a mental and physical reaction to life experiences. Yet, if an individual is under constant stress, the body's natural stress responses can stay elevated for longer than necessary and have extreme tolls on one's health, end quote. When an individual's mental health issue is weaponized against them via social media, their body can stay in a stress-responsive state for longer than is intended. This can have many adverse health effects, such as increased anxiety, irritability, depression, and insomnia. This specific example, however, is especially harrowing. According to Dr. Samantha Fold for the National Library of Medicine, increased stress levels in an individual with autism can result in, quote, "the worsening of the core symptoms of autism," end quote. Another effect of the weaponization of mental illness is that of a negative stigma, both personal and public. When a group of people without autism see autism weaponized to mean stupid or overenthusiastic on social media, they may utilize the same harmful weaponization, thus furthering the public stigma against individuals with autism. When an individual with autism sees autism weaponized to mean stupid or bad, they may form an illusory construct against themselves. Effectively, they might think, "This person was called autistic" as an insult, meaning dumb. "I have autism, which must mean that I'm dumb," thus creating a personal stigma. This can be coupled with a poor self-image as a result of weaponization, which can lead to harmful behavior. This is, again, especially a harrowing factor in this example. According to autism.org, quote, "bullying is a significant risk factor for suicidal thoughts and behaviors for people with autism," end quote. So my last main point in a presentation filled with an attitude of pessimism toward the portrayal of mental health issues via social media is an optimistic one, that of normalization. Oxford Dictionary defines normalization as a social process through which ideas and actions come to be seen as normal. In this context, when a mental health issue is normalized on social media, the mental health issue is no longer stigmatized upon, and an actual conversation about the hardships that specific mental health issue entails can begin. It's important to note that this portrayal of mental health does not fall under the umbrella of a false portrayal. So the normalization of anxiety in social media. Anxiety is defined by Dr. Abhimanyu Chandak, a doctor in psychiatry, as a group of mental illnesses that cause constant fear and worry, characterized by feeling sudden worry, fear, and restlessness. 40 million adults in the United States have anxiety. Individuals with this mental health issue online attempt to make their social media accounts a safe space for people with a mental illness. Robert Vickery for the Anxiety and Depression Association of America writes, "As a Twitch streamer, a live streaming platform for gamers, I create a self space where people can come and hang out and talk about life, because anxiety is hard and we can't do it alone." The normalization, or should I say humanization, of individuals with anxiety online leads to an influx of so-called safe spaces where individuals can communicate their emotions without the fear of a false ideation being placed upon them. For this example, I have provided on screen a snippet of Twitter results of profiles that were found from the key search word anxiety. Many of these accounts are self-proclaimed safe spaces in which individuals can post about their feelings. The content posted on these accounts is intended to help followers self-soothe, give tips to followers about dealing with anxiety in daily life, and even provide links to resources that provide psychiatric care. So one of the effects of normalization is confidence building. When an individual with anxiety sees other people with anxiety being accepted and cared about online, it builds not only self-confidence in the individual, but confidence to seek treatment for the mental illness they struggle with. Another effect of normalization is relationship building. Upon studying mentally ill patients, Dr. John Torres noted social media and social networks now offer a tool to engage and help patients navigate and improve social functioning. End quote. When normalization occurs, harmful stigmas are reduced, and individuals can have meaningful interactions with like-minded peers. Community building is another effect of normalization. Many of the Twitter accounts shown on the last screen had at least thousands of followers. When normalization of a mental health issue occur, communities of people can form online without fear and offer each other identity, help, support, and companionship. So to summarize, my 5 main points were: 1, mental health issues can be falsely portrayed online. False portrayal is an umbrella term under which falls 2, romanticization. Romanticization occurs when mental illnesses are portrayed as desirable. 3, demonization. Demonization occurs when mental illnesses are portrayed as evil. 4, weaponization, and weaponization occurs when a mental illness is weaponized. And outside the umbrella of false portrayals is my last main point, number 5. Normalization of a mental illness occurs when stigmas are removed. Communities can be built when normalization occurs. And those are my sources. Thank you.